Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. And we are in the throes of Derby season. We have a bunch of Derby preps coming up this weekend. Obviously, if you guys follow our YouTube channel, obviously, latest episode of Drinking Champagne, myself and Andrew Champagne went over the Gotham Stakes and a couple other stakes races on the Aqueduct card. So check that out if you haven't. Obviously, no Santa Anita content because apparently there's only 2 horses that can earn points in that Derby race, and it's being run on Sunday because of the impending weather. So shout out, maybe one of those 2 horses will get some points. But, somebody who I would never count out in a 2-horse race, Mr. Mark Capitan. Mark, how are you doing?
I've been better, man. I've been better. No, I got home. We had some inclement weather go through with extremely high winds. Got home and realized that my storage building for a lot of my beekeeping stuff got ripped apart. So it got flipped upside down. So I was out straightening that out this evening, and I'm going to have to try to figure out how to. It broke my mounts where the tethers go into the ground. It's going to be a pain in the ass. Got to fix that tomorrow morning. So I've been better. Let's put it that way. But it is what it is, right? What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I do need to mention or talk a little bit. So I know, in 2 weeks you're going to be in Vegas. And you're going to be in the middle of it, middle of NHC. Have you done any? I mean, obviously you can't. Mark, I know you like to handicap early, but obviously you can't handicap a race 2 weeks in advance. But have you been doing anything? Have you been playing more pick and praise or anything to kind of get into that, or are you just going to kind of go in cold and just kind of be loose and see what happens?
I mean, I've been doing a lot of talking with our good friend Sheldon. He's a great resource. They've added a bunch of tracks this year. There's 9 tracks that you can play for the event. Obviously, there's going to be mandatories that I'll have to play. But beyond that, we were sort of talking through what's the approach and how do you target things. So I've sort of limited it down to a couple of tracks that I want to target. And I've just been dry handicapping those races, looking for spots where I can find my type of races and my type of prices. Just kind of in prep for just having an understanding of, how is Oaklawn Park playing or how is Tampa playing or those types of things. Just having a feel. Haven't played a lot of pick and praise. But I don't want to say I'm going to go into it cold, but I don't want to overthink it. I don't want to be like, spending a huge amount of time, putting a huge amount of effort into handicapping and prepping when, I don't know. There's a lot of luck involved with an HC, and that's why you see people, working together and having lots of tickets where people are, maxing their number of entries, and then they have a group. And I don't want to use the word collusion because I get yelled at when I say that, but there's definitely a lot of the more options you have, the more tickets you can play, the better off you are.
Yeah, and I did see some of the rules. They're trying to at least. They're going to wait a little bit to finalize the results. They're going to try and find out where people are sitting and maybe try and limit it. But
they've added more. They've added more mandatories. I think the seating or having to report where you sit is going to allow them to compare picks from certain tables, which I'm sure is why they're doing that. They're dragging their feet on making it official. There's some things I think they know that there are concerns, and I think they're trying to address those concerns, right? Which is good on them. Good on them for trying.
Speaking of addressing concerns, Mr. Caleb Knight, we have to address the concern that you arrived a minute late today, Caleb. It is not the first time, nor will it be the last time. But I did need to make sure that the people knew that although I joined with 4 minutes to post, you Gulfstream dragged it, which hey, exactly. Maybe you're here for the theme. But Caleb, how you been, man?
I've been good. I've been busy picking back up for spring semester back here at school, but I am excited for some of the real derby preps to kind of start, with the actual 50-point races. I think kicked off last week. We didn't stream for it, but I think the first one was last week. And as much as I do like to meme on Gulfstream Park, Fountain of Youth is always one of my favorite cards of their meet and one of the better cards of the year. I mean, I think it's better than Florida Derby. It's better than a lot of other tracks, kind of like penultimate prep race card. It's all a bunch of stakes racing. Maybe not the highest profile horses, but it's always a good race. Always a good card to bet. So I'm excited for Saturday.
Yeah, I thought the late pick five looked good. Mark had mentioned, and you as well, Caleb. There's a ton of stakes on this card, so you got some good horses. You got some big fields, which if you're looking to bet, that's what you want, right? You want to see these bigger fields, and you want to see competitive fields, and I think you get that a little bit here. So let's kind of just jump right into it here. If I click the right buttons, and we're going to start here with race 10, Gulfstream Park, race 10. We're going to mile and 3/8, the very one, grade 3 for fillies and mares, 4 years old and up. Mark, as the only NHC qualifier in the group, I'll let you go first. Where did you land here on race 10?
Yeah, no, I thought I spent quite a bit of time on this race, and I was sort of head scratching at what price we actually get on our Callie Kim, because when I looked at this field, I see a lot of horses that don't, on paper at least, want to go this far. A lot of really suspect form. And it felt like she's the one kind of known quantity. I mean, I know she handles Gulfstream Park. I know she can get this distance. She's in really good form. She's won 4 of her last 5, and finished a very nice second to Alpha Bella in her first off the bench is a prep for this. I would imagine this was the target all along. I thought the 7-2 morning line was almost laughably generous in here. I would imagine come post time she's going to be 2-1, if not shorter. And then after you get past her, I thought you could make an argument for a number of other players. She does probably need a bit of a pace setup. In here, she does tend to come from way, way, way out of it. But I think she should get enough pace to run into here with the likes of like Sister Luann and the Angel. I'm not even going to try to say the horse, the 9 horse in here. So I kind of, if you needed a free square and you felt like you needed to find a single in here, I thought she was probably your most likely single, because I didn't like any of the other short price horses, but I did like some prices in here. So I was kind of interested to see how Caleb saw this race, if he saw it similar or if he was fishing for prices here.
So I think it's interesting that you landed where you did, because I do like our Callie Kim. I do. I think this horse is in really good form right now for all the reasons you highlighted. But I think I have a different take in the fact that 2-1, I would be a little bit shocked, because if you look at the horse's just end results, yeah, she's very sharp right now. Coming in, had a 4 race win streak before she just got beat last out. But if you look at speed figures, she's just kind of okay, right? I mean, at least on time form, she's tied for the 4th fastest horse in this field with her best race. I mean, she's not dramatically slower than others, but she's not a standout on figures kind of by any stretch, which is why I think it's a little difficult to say. I mean, for me to say that I think she's going to be super short or exactly how confident I am in her, because she wins and she liked Gulfstream and she's going out for, Gaffleon, one of the better riders here, even though Jose Ortiz does go elsewhere. But I think it's just interesting to me, when you try to weigh form versus speed figures, I guess, how do you balance those two things? Because the form tells you one thing, but the figures, it's not like she's too slow to win, but she's just kind of one of the players in here. So I kind of struggled with that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you very much. I guess my argument was more, I know she can get the distance, and there's a lot of others in here who have flashier figures who I really think are suspect in getting the distance. So that's kind of why I ended up landing there, is just I I thought the rest of the four, this kind of a distance. I mean, is we just don't breed horses that can do this. And I thought she was the kind of one in here who I knew could, and I didn't really trust a lot of the others who are going to probably take money, and I imagine you guys will talk about as we go on. But I just thought there was a lot of horses that were kind of 9 furlong horses, and they didn't quite want to go this far.
I'm going to say this, and it really, how much this is going to hurt me to say, Caleb, but I kind of agree with Mark.
Oh God.
But no, I mean, I agree and I disagree, right? I think to Mark's point, I landed on R. Kelly Kim as an A for many of the same reasons he does. It's tough looking through this field and trying to find a horse that wants to run this long. And, I kind of ended up, like I said, de facto on the 10. But as I kind of start looking through the race, and, we've seen this, especially at Gulfstream, this can happen. This happens in New York all the time. You get these long turf routes, and what happens? One horse gets out on the front, everyone falls asleep. Oh, wait, this isn't turf, this is derf. And the speed's going to carry all the way home. So I did use the 5 Sister Luann as well as an A. Looks to be your speed horse in this race. Has got some back races where she's definitely led, and those tend to be the ones going mile 16th, which tends to be about the longest that she's run. So the distance is going to be interesting. I mean, but if you see Tappet and Kitten's Joy in the pedigree, so you would assume horse should be able to get a little bit longer. Mile and 3/8 maybe is stretching it a little bit, but I think Sister Luann's a use in this spot just because of the pace scenario. It doesn't really seem like there's any other clear cut leaders in this race. So I'm going to use the 5 and the 10 as lone A's. But Caleb, who else did you use in here?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with your analysis of the race. Honestly, if you're looking just to kind of take what it's giving you, it probably does go through the 5 and the 10. For me, I think I didn't like anybody in here. Like I could poke more holes in horses than I could find things to like. With Sister Luann, I mean, you can't knock her for the Pegasus last out. Udidia is an extremely talented horse. But the race 2 back, it felt to me like she was kind of supposed to win that race on a loose lead, setting pretty slow fractions. Now she has to go a lot farther. I didn't know what to do with her. R. Kelly Kim is your most likely winner if none of the other new shooters show an improved race. But again, based on figures, she's kind of just a player in here. She's a 7-year-old mare. So I guess I just wanted to look a different direction. But the one direction I did kind of land on a horse that is also sort of trying something new, but at least will be a better price, was the number 3, Ready Lady. Coming over from Woodbine. I thought that this was a horse that is a little more versatile than may first appear, kind of showing some speed in some of those Woodbine races, but also being probably better set as a presser closer. So I think this is one who on figures is really just as fast as R. Kelly Kim in this race. Also has to answer the distance question, which is a bit of an unknown. Went 1.25 miles last time and flattened out, but I kind of wonder if that's not more of a function of the fact that she's just not as good on the synthetic as she is on the turf. I'm not really sure, but this is a race where I'm really just reticent to take a short price on anybody. So I'm more inclined to give a horse like Ready Lady a chance with a lot of stamina on the bottom of that pedigree, just hoping that she's well meant on the ship-in from Woodbine. The only time she's been at Gulfstream before, she ran a pretty decent 3rd. So she's one that I kind of gave a look to. And I also wouldn't totally discount the number 2, Highland Grace, at a huge price. She's not fast enough to win this race, but she is one that I think we all know wants to go this far. And if I don't know what the forecast is for Saturday, but if there's any rain, I think she's the one that probably stands to benefit the most, as it seems like she really moves up on a turf course with some give in it. If it's firm, it might be a little bit tougher on the traditional Gulfstream turf. But she is one that I think, as a 4-year-old who we know likes this distance, she's the one I think with almost unquestionably the most upside in the field. And I might be willing to give her a look against others that I'm just probably not so impressed with.
MIT boy dropping a reticent, huh? Wow. I mean, geez, man. The one horse that nobody has brought up, and I'm a little surprised, and maybe Josh is going to go there, was the 8 horse, Miss Yearwood, who is another horse in here that I looked through, and I think I would take, our Callie Kim on top, but I think my second choice is probably Miss Yearwood. I don't love the jock, although he does have a bunch of wins up on her. And she won at 12 furlongs at both Keeneland and Churchill. Obviously, the Churchill race is on the turf, so that's a little different, but Keeneland has legitimate, legit turf course. So I know she can get the distance. She's another one that definitely needs a pace setup, and she's going to be coming out of the clouds even more so than our Kelly Kim. But at least I know she can get the distance. The jock gets along with her well, and it seems like if I need another horse and I'm looking for a price, I would rather go to somebody like her over the likes of, I don't know. I mean, God, nobody's brought up any of these others, but some of the short price morning lines of somebody like a Kyra Consort or, Sister Luann, somebody like that, horses that I don't really think want to be going this far. At least Miss Yearwood, I know she can get the distance, and I'm going to get a lot better pricing on those other two.
I do like Miss Yearwood, Mark, just to your point real quick. I would like her a lot more if this race was in Kentucky. And not just because of the connections, although that is kind of funny, but just also if you look at, her 2 tries at Gulfstream were, kind of vying away her worst 2 races, and her 3 races in Kentucky, at 3 different tracks, but Churchill, Keeneland, and Ellis were all kind of her best races. I just don't know. Some horses don't care for the turf. I'm not sure what to think as far as if she'll handle it or not, but she is one that I do think is a player in here if she comes back to one of those Churchill or Keeneland races.
Yeah, it's one of those games of I didn't quite know what to do with her because I saw the same thing you saw, but I was like, well, she got across Churchill's turf, and that's basically the same as Gulfstream's turf, right? Like it kind of sort of looks like green stuff. So I mean, maybe she can handle a weird going. I don't know, but no, I get your point, and your point's very well taken.
Yeah. So I only have Brisnet up, but on time form, how many points does this 9 got to make up in order to be competitive?
Josh on E5, and he has to ask a question about it.
All of them?
13.
Yeah.
13, yeah.
Pretty slow.
She
went 51 at Santa Anita last out to the half.
Horse looks slow on Briz as well.
She's the second slowest horse in the race.
Horse looks slow on Briz as well, but like I said, for all of the issues with California racing, I feel like their turf racing, at least you get honest paces there. Just seeing that, this is a horse that's gotten the lead a couple of times, going a route distance over there. Maybe a little bit interested, but switching over to the Staffy barn.
To the half. 51.
Well, yeah. But I'm looking a little further back.
Okay.
We're going back. I see 46 and 3, okay. 47 and 3. In a couple of efforts there, but I don't know. This was another one. I mean, I'm just looking at the lack of pace in this race, and so the 5, the 5 just kind of stuck out to me. Kevin pointing out that Miss Yearwood has got the rare 1 early pace rating on Timeform US. So
nobody likes Kyra Consort. I mean, I figured somebody would land there, but I don't personally, but I'm kind of shocked that no one else did. She's a horse that's very popular for most of her career.
I think she was. I just think she sort of screams at this point. They're trying to figure out what she sort of wants to do, right? Like, they're trying to stretch her out, and it just, I guess to me, it feels like a desperation move. It feels like they've she doesn't seem to be competitive going shorter anymore. And I mean, she's cashed some checks. I don't want to beat her up too much. But this just sort of feels like a shot in the dark. And no, maybe she wants to go this far. Her pedigree does not say that this is the distance. Her pedigree is much more what she's been successful at, mile and 16th kind of range. I just think this is just way too far for her. But I mean, the horses have proven me wrong before, but I guess I sort of have the same sort of take on her with her as I do with Sister Luann. They both seem like horses that are better going a much shorter trip. This is much more than they want to go, and I just don't see it now.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think this is too far. I think she's more of a kind of a plotter, and I think she was just a very precocious 2-year-old that kind of has hit her ceiling, so to speak. But I mean, just not for me either. I agree.
Yeah, I mean the only like positive you can kind of say is right. This is a 4-year-old in this field. You know that this is when these horses are starting to get into their peak. But yeah, I don't think bred for this. If this was a mile and a 16th, like the same distance as the Pegasus World Cup that she ran last time in a much softer field here. Well, okay, we can talk about it, but I think going instead of it being 1/16th, being 3/8 additional distance, I think is just asking a little too much.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think people will probably also be drawn to her off the figure she threw up in that last race. It seems like every figure I've seen from that Pegasus day just seems so inflated. None of them make sense. They're all through the moon. It just feels like I don't know. I think she'll take money. She's just not a horse I want a part of. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure, as we go through these races, because there's a couple of others that come back from those races, and I think those figures are very suspect.
All right, let's move on here. Race 11, the Gulfstream Park Mile, presented by Jack Christopher. We're gonna be going a mile here for 4-year-olds and up.
Oh God,
Grade 2. What?
I didn't realize it actually was presented by Jack Christopher. You said
Yeah.
it.
I thought you were memeing, actually.
I
No,
thought you were
I'm
memeing, and
serious,
then
no.
I looked up
I
and
did
read it,
too.
and it actually is. I was like, he's being serious. It really
That's
is presented by
amazing.
Jack
Yeah,
Christopher.
I never
That
joke,
is-
guys. I don't know what you guys are talking about. This race is got a little bit of shades of the first race in that what is this pace? And I think if you can figure out what the pace is in here, I think you have a bit of an advantage. I think, looking at the pace figures, Tumbarumba it like stands out, who ran that really big race in the Fred Hooper last time out, but I mean he set off a pace that Brisnet has got marked as fast. I don't know. Does Timeform have that as a red race or no?
I don't have the colors on, John.
They don't
No.
have it red, but they have it on the Swifter side. They do have
Yeah.
him, kind of contending for the lead in this race.
Yeah. And so I was trying to make sense of this pace. And, I went with the 4 Il Miracolo in this spot. You got JJ aboard for Antonio Sano. They tried the Pegasus last time out. Didn't really work out. This horse has generally been running at longer distances, but does have 2 wins at this distance. I mean, I was kind of grasping the straws here a little bit. I mean, I'm going back to the mile race he ran last year here at Gulfstream, which is the last mile race I see, where he went wire to wire, going 23, 45, and 1 and 1. It is a 4-year-old, newly turned 4-year-old. Once again, I mentioned it before. These are kind of this is like the prime year for the horse. He's kind of just getting into his prime, I think with just a lack of pace, I think he could get a similar pace setup to what he had back in May 11th of 23. I know we're going way far back, but I just don't see anybody else really who I think might want to try and contest this lead. So, I'm going to go Il Miracolo wire to wire in this spot. Surprise, surprise. I took a speed horse, but I don't know. Caleb, did you kind of see the pace setting up the same way, or do you kind of see it a little bit differently?
I see it being murky, similar to you. I think it's a tricky pace to figure out because there's no clear-cut leader. I would probably guess that the 5 Tumbarumba gets the lead instead of the 4. I think Saez is probably just a little more inclined to give a more aggressive ride, whereas Castellano on a horse that's cutting back from those slower paced 2-turn races back to a 1-turn mile. I'm not totally sure, but to your point, I mean, we have seen Miracolo show speed in the past, going this trip at Gulfstream for that matter. So it wouldn't be unheard of. It's a tricky pace scenario to kind of figure. I do think that your 2 most likely winners are the 4 and the 5, the kind of 2 horses who I assume are going to be the first and second, or probably second and first choice on the morning line. I don't think you get anywhere near 9-2 on your Miracolo. I think this horse ends up being your second choice most likely, probably around 3-1 or 5-2. I don't think Tumbarumba also goes as short as 8-5. I think that's too short for that horse. I think he floats up a bit, maybe around 2-1. But I do think they'll be your top two choices, and I do think they're probably the top two horses to beat. I'd be a little bit inclined if I'm going to take a horse at a price in this race. I'd probably look to the number 6, Shaq Diesel. This is a horse that on paper maybe hasn't run quite as fast as others, but I just like the way he's coming into this race. You know, he's a 4-year-old here, so like we've talked about previously, like lots of upside. He's making his really third start from a small layoff, but really a fourth start since that big layoff, going from April to October. This horse briefly had Derby aspirations over the spring last year, got rested up over the summer, has now come back as a 4-year-old and seems to be in pretty good form. Ran second in a race 3 back where he clearly needed the start off the layoff, and then rattled off 2 wins against restricted stakes company at Tampa, and then an optional $25,000 claiming race at Gulfstream. I think that Gulfstream race was maybe a little better than what the speed figure came back as he was able to close into relatively tepid fractions. Yeah, a 24 opening quarter is pretty slow for a mile at Gulfstream. So I like this horse getting back to a mile where he's 2 for 2. He does have 3 of his 5 wins here at Gulfstream, and he's going out for the David Fox barn, who's sending out a lot of live runners right now. So he does need to probably find an improvement, but I think he is sitting on a step forward, whether it's a big enough step forward to contend with the 4 and the 5, and arguably even the 3 horse as well, is maybe a bit of a question mark, but he's the one price horse that I'd probably include on my ticket if I'm trying to get around the 4 and the 5, but I do think it probably goes through those 2 horses.
Yeah, Caleb, sometimes you kill me because it feels like you're reading my freaking notes. I had Jack Diesel was my price horse in here that I really, really liked. For every reason you identified. He throws a career top at Tampa, had every excuse to bounce to the next race and still got it done with a really nice performance. And I think this is the kind of horse that probably takes another step forward here. Would not be a shock at all at a stupid price for me. Maybe he's more of a tournament style play, one of those, you're going to get a decent value and he's a nice player, or, depending on how you structure your tickets, you build around this kind of a horse to really have a huge day. But I think he's a really interesting sort of, horse that's going to, I don't know if you get that 15-1. If we both like him, he probably takes money. I think he's a very interesting horse here in a race that, somebody said it, and I think Road Warrior said it in chat, that this is somewhat of an uninspiring race. You hope some of the bigger players showed up, and this is kind of the C tier of this division, and it's just a little frustrating. We don't see anybody, but I'm sure they're waiting for a little later in the year to kind of really get their campaigns going. And I very much really agree with you guys. I had Il Morocolo and Tumbarumba listed as my A's for kind of all the reasons you pointed out. I don't need to go too much deeper on those 2, but no, it's not the best version of this race that I've ever seen.
Yeah. So what's funny, Caleb, is Il Miracolo is technically the 4th choice on the morning line. Your favorite horse in training right now, the number 2 Wit, is currently 3-1. And Kevin says that's his fade of the late pick 5. He thinks that this horse might take some money just because people are going to see Irad and Pletcher.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. That's the easiest throw out in this whole race. Even if he wins, he's a bad bet.
I was going to say, Caleb and I, one of us was going to put Wit right in the winner's circle.
Yeah.
Here. This horse is, if you bet Wit, you're have fun. I mean, he makes absolutely, he hasn't won in forever. And clearly, if you want to look at the form cycle of a trainer who has no clue what to do with a horse, look at how Wit has been campaigned his last about 10 starts. They've tried every distance, every surface, everything they could throw at him. They're back to dirt now. I mean, I realize he has one nice race, but it was at Aqueduct, one race that fits, that was forever ago at Aqueduct, going 7 furlongs with a somewhat suspect figure. In a race that kind of came apart in front of him. So he's going to probably take money, and I think he's like the fate of the century.
Yeah, and I was talking with Andrew a little bit when we were talking about the Gotham and the late pick 4 there at the Gotham card. And Aqueduct form, man, that if you're relying on Aqueduct form to carry anywhere else, I mean, God bless you. That is a unique track. And especially once it gets muddy, I mean, good luck if you're going to try and bet one of those horses. But Yeah, I don't see it with Wit. That's definitely going to be. I mean, not any of my other tickets. The other short price at 5-2 is the 3 Steel Sunshine. I mean, I guess they're going to bet it off the third place last time out. But this was another one I just had no interest in, and it was another short price.
Yeah, he's fine, but he doesn't really do much for me at 5-2.
But Michael Iverone's going to wear something ridiculous. We can we can count on that at least for some content, right? Anything else in this race you guys want to talk about?
Anybody give either the 7 or the 8, Ticking or Gilmore, any sort of a look? I mean, Ticking is kind of your, quote unquote horse for course, 3-6 over Gulfstream, albeit, none of those races have been going this trip. Seems like he has been going a little bit shorter, but, I mean, he's, year older now, should be able to handle the stretch out a little bit, light on figures, but every right to take a step forward, kind of third of the form cycle, I think now. And then, I didn't even hate Gilmore in here, who doesn't have a win going going the surface, but does have a couple wins going this 1 mile trip. That Hooper was just I mean, I realize Tumlarumba comes back, but I don't know. I thought I'd be okay giving Gilmore one shot. I probably prefer Ticking over Gilmore in this spot, but either of you guys give them a look.
I gave them a look. I mean, I think probably the only way I use them is if I say I'm not playing Wit and I'm going to just kind of take a shot that the Fred Hooper was a bit of an aberration, and then kind of throw out Steel Sunshine and Tumba Roomba, and then just say if I'm right and the top 3 choices don't win, then I want to have whoever else wins, and that in which case I would cover horses like Ticking and Gilmore. And I think that's a valid way to approach this race.
Yep.
For me personally, I don't know where that last race from Ticking came from. He was gelded 2 starts back and didn't really show much improvement. And then at 43-1, he pops off with a career top. If I can't explain what happened, I have a hard time backing him, but he is 20-1. So again, that's not the horse that I'm going to let beat me if I'm throwing out the top 3 choices on the morning line. Yeah. And I'd say the same argument for Gilmore. I mean, different story in the sense that he does have figures that put him in the mix from his 3-year-old campaign, but it certainly seemed like he's kind of going the wrong direction in his last 2 starts. So I'm not sure what to do with a horse like that, or not sure if he's going to be left with too much to do. But again, from a ticket construction perspective, I could see using him if you're against the short prices.
And I guess that was probably my approach more. I was thinking from picks, a pick 5 construction. I think I can get aggressive in the 10th, and then I can get a little skinny later on. So I was okay kind of spreading this race out. And I would probably literally use everyone that's not named Wit in this race. Which sounds an amazingly lot like a Caleb ticket. My God. Toss the favorite, buy the race, and then of course the favorite booms me for some stupid score. But yeah.
Yeah, Gilmore's a funny horse because you look at the back races going back to last year. You look at how well he ran in those races, the horses that beat him, and you look at any of those horses in this race, and you're like, oh well, this horse would, look really, really good in this race, right? But then just the last couple races, last 3 races out of Gilmore just haven't really given much inspiration. I mean, I guess the Mr. Prospector, right, running second is Sibelius, who's a really, really nice horse. Looks all right, but I don't know what happened in that Fred Hooper, and we're basically running that race back a little bit here, so tough to trust.
And just a random question. Castle Chaos, does anybody know what the deal is there? Because he's on one product, but
scratched.
Not on he is scratched? Okay, cool.
He is scratched.
Because he would be a major player in here if he was here. So,
all right, race 12, the Canadian Turf. Got a grade 3 here, going a mile in 16th on the Durf. And, I was looking through this race, and I had, I was having some questions, and Mark said that there's a Josh horse here. And so, I decided to humor him, and I took the Josh horse. But Mark, where did you land? I'll let you go first here.
No. I mean, I think, to me at least, This is a bit of an interesting race. I landed on two horses on top. One of them's a bit of a price. I think Atone has had, has done a lot of really good running. Been a pretty solid horse. I mean, he's had a bit of a jockey carousel going on with him, and he hasn't necessarily loved Gulfstream. And again, he's no wind machine or anything else, but he kind of, class wise seems to tower over this field, and has some real good back races that make him a major player in here. And the other horse that I thought made a ton of sense was the 5 horse, Siege of Boston for Jimmy Toner, a horse that does have a win going, across this Gulfstream surface, and it has been, again, does another one of these ones that doesn't win very often, but on figures, he really kind of seems to be a major player here. I don't necessarily, I got a little creative with some other plays in here. I kind of hoped you talked through this so I could go, price hunting in here. But no, I thought those two were kind of my top picks, and I thought there were some other interesting bigger prices on the board that made a lot of sense in here. And I guess my biggest take is probably I'm just against Emmanuel. He doesn't have, he has one race that kind of makes him a major player in here, and that's his that 2-back race in the poker. Beyond that race, I don't know what makes him a 2-1 morning line favorite in here, other than name recognition, maybe, and probably the fact that he'll take money, given the connections. I just thought Emmanuel was just very not interesting here, and he's another one that I'm pretty okay if Emmanuel beats me in this sequence. So I'm tossing 2 favorites. I don't know what happened to me. It feels really dirty, but no, I think I'm more against Emmanuel in this spot, and I want to try to invent and create some prices. So ended up on the 5 and the 6 here, and interested to see where you guys landed, and then I'll loop back to one that I had that was a bigger price.
Caleb?
Yeah, so we have some disagreement finally.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I think I have no real issues with the 5 and 6. The 5 always runs an okay race, but he just gets beaten by a number of these horses repeatedly. And I would take any of the horses who have beaten him over Siege of Boston, including my top pick, who is the number 2 Smokin' Tea. I think that 6-1 line's a little bit silly. We'll see, I guess, what it ends up actually being. I do agree with Mark that Emmanuel at 2-1 feels pretty terrible. I do think he's a player in here. I mean, I'm not like saying he can't win, but at 2-1 as the favorite, I think he's a poor bet. Whereas I think at 6-1, Smokin' Tea, I don't think you get 6-1, but nevertheless, I think he's very well meant in here. I mean, can sit close to the pace if he needs to, can also close from further back. So I love the versatility. I mean, he's coming in off of a nice win at Churchill in the River City. So I really like Smokin' Tea in this spot. And even another horse that's kind of beaten Siege of Boston once or twice. Not my top pick, and I probably actually like others a little bit more, but just kind of I feel like I painted myself into this corner the way I started this conversation, which is the number 1 Saratoga Flash. There isn't a lot of speed in this race, and the number 9, okay, Giant Game. I don't know if he's actually going to run in this race. I mean, he probably should scratch. He does have a bit of turf pedigree, but Del Romans is abysmal at first-time turf, and I just don't think this horse really has any shot in here. In the event that he scratches, which I'm thinking is probably 50-50, I think the number 1 Saratoga Flash stands fit to get a pretty nice lead. And even if the 9 doesn't scratch, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a foregone conclusion that he's going to get the lead from that post compared to Saratoga Flash from the rail. And I think that you can be a little more forgiving of Saratoga Flash's last 2 races. He clearly just didn't really love the synthetic. It's very difficult to wire that synthetic routes at Gulfstream. Both times he was caught up in a pretty swift pace battle. And last time out, he had to break from the parking lot. He made a middle move that was super wide and then just ended up empty. I'm not sure that he's really quite this good, but he had a really nice race at Kentucky Downs, and then a couple of other respectable races at Saratoga and Gulfstream over the summer. He probably does need to improve a little bit, but if he gets a good enough trip from the rail and is able to save ground and establish forward position, either first or second, I think he's one that at 15-1 could be a player in this race and have something to say at the end. So my top pick is the 2. Saratoga Flash is one that I am interested in, but I'll see where Josh lands before we go any further.
Well, you talked about my 2 A's. The one Saratoga Flash, Mark dubbed as the Josh horse in this race. And I think I kind of saw it the same way you did, Caleb. I looked at this pace, and I just didn't see a lot of pace in this race. I didn't see I see a horse in Saratoga Flash who, when is left on the lead by himself, tends to run really, really nice races. Has even wired on a synthetic. I know the last two weren't really great, but or didn't wire, but he won a nice race there. But yeah, this is a horse that when he is close up on the lead, he's very, very tough to beat. I mean, last two back lost to Fly the W, who is like the Gulfstream Park synthetic horse of all synthetic horses, and set some pretty pretty decent fractions trying to wire there, and then just completely missed it last time out. So I see him getting right back to the lead here. Zayas aboard, and I think that he's going to have the pace all his own way. The other horse I'm going to use is going to be the 9 Giant Game, which I know you said more than likely will scratch. And I think this is just like you said, hey, like this is a horse that has shown some pretty good speed routing. Is Giant's Causeway on the top, which is can run on either surface, but actually can run on all 3 surfaces, but doesn't tend to get a lot of first-time turf winners. Dale Romans definitely does not get first-time turf winners. So, I mean, you're going to need all of 25, 30 to 1, I think, on this horse for anything. But just trying to think of that Gulfstream Park turf course, I think if there's any turf course in America that a dirt horse could take to, it might be the Gulfstream Park turf course. So, this is just kind of a bit of a Hail Mary. Hey, I mean, the horse is 20 to 1. The morning line is probably going to be longer than that. So I don't expect to get beat up too much for it. But, I'm taking the speed in this race. What a surprise. If the 9 can run any, something like he ran in any of those, those summer of 23 races, that form coming into this race, which doesn't look all that great. I think he's a little bit interesting as an outsider. Anything else we want to talk about in this race? Mark, you look like you're going to say something.
No, I think the only other horse that I had marked on it was, well, and by the way, Josh, I do like your one horse Saratoga Flash. I think the only conversation you have to have with Saratoga Flash is just one about making sure you get the right price, because we all had the price marked down as being an interesting player. I have the horse marked down as a B with an asterisk that I wanted to talk about it on stream, but I think we're all probably playing that one, the figure that came out of that Kentucky Downs race. And is that just an aberrant fig, or is that what this horse can really do if it gets really loose and has the perfect trip going a mile? Argument to be made that the horse didn't really love the synth in the last 2. Therefore, do you go back to that fig and say, geez, that's legitimate? But the horse has never backed it up. So you just have to get the right price in Saratoga Flash for that to be a playable horse. The only other horse I thought was a little bit interesting was the 10 horse Ice Chocolate, who, is, you're getting Sayers up for Cassie. Louis Sayers getting up on any horse is never a bad thing, especially on the turf. And I really wonder, where does Louis place Ice Chocolate? I mean, he's a guy who, obviously a very talented rider, from understanding pace complexions of a race. Is this the kind of race where maybe he has this horse a little more forwardly placed, sits right off your 1, makes his trip a little rough, and then kind of takes over top of the lane, and you can't quite get by? I think that just from a pace complexion and a pace flow, Ice Chocolate at a bit of a price could be a really interesting player. Horse probably needs to have its career best race, but we've said that about other horses in here who aren't quite at that price. So I thought Ice Chocolate in here was, a little bit of an interesting player as well.
That was the other horse I had marked as well. I would like Ice Chocolate a hell of a lot better if this is a mile relative to a mile and a 16th. And I know that feels like a minor distinction, but I really feel like this is a horse that is better going maybe like 7 furlongs, maybe like a Belmont 1 mile. but did get the mile at Gulfstream last out. Maybe can work out the mile in a 16th, but an interesting horse in here.
So you can get a turf mile, but a 7 furlong in a real turf course.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
Right?
okay. Yeah.
Anything else in this race?
I think we talked them all to death at this point.
All right.
Yeah, I think so.
Race 13, the Honey Fox. We're going to be going a mile here on the turf, grade 3. And, you know, I looked at this race, and unlike all the other races, I flipped the script.
Are you going to eat chalk in here?
I
like
believe
a closer
so.
is what he's going to do.
I'm gonna I like a closer in this spot, and so I'm gonna take the 2 closers. I think. Obviously, the race kind of starts and stops. I think with the 6 Chili Flag, you got to decide what you want to do with this horse. 9 to 5. Chad Brown trained horse with Irad aboard. This horse is gonna take all the money, and if this horse wasn't going to get the setup, this would be exactly the horse I would try and fade. But I think this horse is getting the setup of all setups on this race. And yeah, I think that this is going to be one of those races where Irad's going to barely get up to win, right? At like 6 to 5. And you're just going to be just swearing up and down because he's going to get a dream trip. You guys you know exactly the type of race I'm talking about. Caleb sometimes calls it a candy ass trip, and I just have this sinking feeling that that's what's going to happen here, and I think Chili Flag is going to get the setup of all setups. I hate it. I hate it as much as anybody else, but as an alternative, the other closer, the 2 Candy Light, second time out for the Safi barn, was previously in Grand Motion's barn, and first time out for Safi, all he did was win a handicap race on the synthetic. Came from off the pace and kind of closed in there. Has got a couple of other races back on the turf with just really good closing kick, closing late pace figs, and I just think if you kind of look back at some of his races, he hasn't really gotten super fast paces to close into. So I think in this case, I think he's going to get just that, and I think you're going to see a little bit of improvement here out of the 2. So only 2 horses I'm going to use as A's, the 2 and the 6. I got a horse as a B that I'll talk about a little bit later, but Mark, since I took your crown as the chalk eater, I will now pass the baton to you.
Yeah, no, I looked at this race, and I want absolutely no part of it in here. For a million different reasons. First off, yeah, she may sit a candy ass trip, but I think this is too sharp. I don't think this is what she wants to be doing. She's 0 for 5 going this trip, and I think almost you're going to have the exact opposite. I think Irad's going to be flying home late and just going to miss, and somebody else is going to pull it off. So yeah, maybe she does really sit the trip, but I just have never thought much of Chili Flag. She just, I don't know, she's supposed to win at obscenely short prices and then doesn't. It seems like Chad has, just campaigned her in amazingly soft spots. And she's just, I just don't think she's that good, and I don't think this is the trip she wants. I think this is just way too sharp for her. But I think she's going to take a ton of money, which means there's going to be value in other spots. So the 2 horses that I landed on are, first off, the 3 horse Be My Sunshine, who's never missed the exacta at Gulfstream in 4 starts, and has figures that are every bit as fast as Chili Flag, and also seems to be the type of horse that, I don't know, maybe likes to win a little more. So I thought she was actually really interesting in here. And the other horse that I was really interested in was the Jimmy Toner horse, the 7 horse, which is for the flag. Perfect at Gulfstream. Won. I don't know. She did win going this trip. It seems like she is the legitimate miler in this field. And has, again, her mile races are every bit as fast as Chili Flag's. And again, so I have a couple of horses that I'm going to get substantially better prices on. And I would imagine it's going to be Chili Flag probably rolling for somebody like For the Flag. Oh my God, way too many flags. Chili Flag trying to chase down somebody like For the Flag, who I think kind of is going to inherit, I don't know, the lead or be very forwardly placed. And I think she's really interesting in here. And I'm much more interested in those horses than Chili Flag, who I think I kind of know what she is, and I just don't think she's that good.
Oh, we are all over the map on this one, boys.
Really?
So, yeah. So, Mark, I'm with you in the sense that I hate Chili Flag. Chili Flag stinks, and she will be on none of my tickets. Josh, I'm disappointed. I have no issue with Candy Light, but I just want other directions. Candy Light would need a Candy Trip to win this one, and she might get it, but I also think she's better on synthetic. That being said, I have no real knocks on Mark, your horses. I looked at For the Flag for a long time. If I'm taking a speed horse, that's who it is. But the more I look at this race, at least without scratches, I struggle to see anybody wiring this race. To me, the pace seems very fast. That's kind of more to Josh's point. I mean, Ancient Peace seems like wants to be forwardly placed. You have Paco in there. You have Time Passage, who's going to go. You have For the Flag. There's just a lot of speed. I mean, hell, even Walkathon made the lead last time out. I doubt that happens again today with Leparoux on board, but I think it's going to be a contested pace. So there was 2 horses in here that I sort of landed on. My top pick is the number 4, Spansive. And this is a horse that also has speed, so I'm kind of hoping she doesn't get aggressively ridden like she was in those first 2 races. But to me, I mean, she had no reason to run half as good as she did in that last race. She was making her first start in a 7-month layoff. She was rising up in class, facing older horses, for the first time out of restricted company. She was marooned in the parking lot from the 11 post, going 7.5 furlongs at Gulfstream, where that turn starts 3 jumps out of the gate. She gets bumped at the start, hung out super wide, and is behind a very slow pace. I mean, 48-2, to the half mile, going 7.5 furlongs, and then was able to pass over half the field late in a race that she had every right to need. I think she is going to have a big improvement in here and is one that really stands to take a step forward and will improve. I don't know that you get 12-1. I don't think you do. But I think she is by and far my top pick. And if nothing else, that Troubled Trip kind of reassures me that she's not truly a need to lead type. And I think that's going to be huge in a race like this, where there might be a pretty contested battle on the front end. So Spansive is my top choice in here. And I guess I went for 2 bombs. And this one I do think will be a genuine bomb, which is the number 8 Mohawk Trail. Now, I get it on time form figures, and arguably not so much on Brisnet, but on time form anyway. This horse needs to run a lot faster to even hit the board. But this horse has been in a number of races, her last 3 or 4, that featured blue-coated slow paces. And oftentimes I find that the time form figures that come back from those races, even though they are pace adjusted a little bit, sometimes it doesn't quite do them justice, especially for a horse that's trying to come off the pace. So I think Mohawk Trail is a true and true miler in here. She's been okay going a little bit shorter, but last time just kind of started to get going a little bit too late at Kentucky Downs. She won a grade 3 in Woodbine 2 back against a softer field than what she finds here, but nevertheless, I mean, I don't see any monsters in this race. So I think this is a horse that getting back to a mile seems to be working extremely sharp in the morning and has been running against a lot of unfavorable pace scenarios. And I think she finally gets a hot pace to chase after today. If I'm going against a horse like Chili Flag or something else, I do think Mohawk Trail could be one that just might get overlooked. And I think you'll get probably better than 20-1 on that horse. So yeah, she's one that is coming out of a live race against Stance McCabe and Bling, both who came out to win next out of that Kentucky Downs race. Looks to be pretty sharp and is going to be a massive price. So I do think Spansive is my top selection. Mohawk Trail is the one who I think is going to be 30-1 and actually in there with a shot.
Caleb, you were talking about prices you liked, and I thought for a second you were going to take a price that I also liked, and then I saw the jockey and went, oh, no, Caleb's never going to end up on that horse. The one other horse that I noticed in here that I think is kind of interesting is the 11 Ancient Peace. If you look at Brian Lynch's stats, first off, Brian Lynch's barn has absolutely been on fire. He's hitting 30% at Gulfstream so far, and he's 30% when he puts Javi up. Seems like Javi has become one of his go-to jocks. You know, and it seems as though Javi had options and kind of stuck here after that second place out in you know, in that last race in that optional 62, second off the layoff, a little bit of extra distance to work with here. And I think if there was a interesting horse that might get a little lost on the board, I thought Ancient Peace was quite interesting. But I know I've seen people in chat, and I also saw you talking about Spansive, and I just don't get it. I'd love somebody to explain. Are we just supposed to expect that Spansive finds 15 points on time form to be a player in this race? Seems like everything that horse has done is just way too slow. I mean, I realized second off the layoff, second start as a 4-year-old. Okay, those could be improvement angles. And there was obviously a long unplanned layoff last summer. So clearly something went wrong, and maybe Todd finally has this one right. But are you just gambling on a massive improvement on a horse that, considering a bunch of people are talking about it, I'm assuming it's going to take some money?
Well, I do think the horse will take money. I mean, I agree with you there. And I mean, to me, the horse has improved in every start of her career. You know, I think it's reasonable to expect another step forward. You know, second off the layoff, troubled trip, slow pace, against the flow of the race last out. I mean, has every reason to run faster. And, you know, it's only 3 points, you know, slower than, you know, your 11, for example. I mean, I guess it really depends on what you figure you think wins this race. I mean, I'm kind of ballparking a 120 on time form probably gets
120 is where I was at. Yeah, same.
You know, so she needs to find about 8 or 10 points. But I think that there's reason that she will. Just given what I saw in that last race with the trouble she had, the fact that she should step forward, and you're getting Pletcher and Ortiz in here, which will suppress the price. But I think at anything 6 to 1 or higher, maybe 7 to 1 or higher, I think she's a good play.
Yeah, I spent a long time trying to make a case for her and just couldn't quite get there. But I agree. There's a price where she's very interesting. I don't know if 6 to 7 to 1 is it. I would say 10 to 1 probably for me. But yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. Okay, that makes some more sense.
Yeah, circling back on Mohawk Trail, that's another one. That's another horse I did like in this spot. I had Mohawk Trail written down as a B, my only B in this race, and yeah, I kind of saw it the same as you, Caleb. Like, I'm looking for a horse that's going to close, and Mohawk Trail has closed into slow paces and hasn't gotten any pace to close into. I mean, going back to the last start at Gulfstream, going a mile, and even that, there was they have it coded as at least a moderate pace on Brisnet, and he went wire to wire, so or she went wire to wire in that race. So I think if David Egan takes his horse back, this horse does have that late pace, that late kick that I think could maybe surprise at a big price. So I like that pick as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't give Mohawk Trail much of a look, but then I just took a look at those last 3 works, and those all kind of scream off the page that this horse is flipping loaded right now. So maybe you got something there.
And truth be told, I didn't like this horse before we started streaming. And then I was kind of looking through at the last minute, and I noticed the works, and then I saw the close into a slow pace. And I pulled up that Kentucky Downs race, which has produced 3 next out winners, all of which, and even the horses who have not won have improved their speed figures anywhere from 4 to 10 points. So I think this horse could be more live than the general public will give her credit for, but she'll certainly need to be to get a piece of this.
Well, I mean, it's crazy. Those works are nuts. Best of 37, second of 23, and third of 20, and 2 of those going 5. So it's not like those were, short works. Yeah. And you're at Gulfstream where everybody's training, and especially that's where turf horses get shipped over the winter. So that's something to write home about on a horse that's, again, going to be a dumb price.
All right. Race 14, Fountain of Youth, 50 Derby points on the line. Going a mile and 16th here on the Gulfstream Park dirt. Your morning line favorite is, oh goodness, it's a door knock. It's the 5 door knock here at 2 to 1 on the morning line. Then you get 5 to 2 unlocked, and then you start to get to the middle prices basically after that. Clear top 2 choices. Speakeasy's 9 to 2. Victory Avenue's 4 to 1. Real Macho 8 to 1. And then you got double digits, very long shot, long price than the rest of them. Mark, once again, going back to the NHC qualifier, where did you land here?
You're putting me on the spot here, huh? No, I think there was an argument to be made. I know everybody talked about the Todd Pletcher barn last summer at Saratoga, and obviously weather and a number of other things. We didn't see a lot of these horses, and I obviously Todd points towards this Gulfstream meet to show off all his 3-year-olds. This is where he has them, and this is his number one horses tend to be funneled through here. You mentioned Dornock, and I guess it's Dornock. I thought it was Dornick or something. I don't know. Anyways, I'll go with the Josh pronunciation there. Who has done nothing wrong, and I thought that Remsen was a nice race. Took a couple times to break the maiden, had a little bit of hangs. They seem to have sort of figured that out. But I think when I look at this race, I sort of want some of the new shooters that are here, horses that I think I have upside, and I landed on Speakeasy the one, Maidenbreaker last out over Victory Avenue, who's also in here. Figures for both of them came back really good. If you're a figures person, the 113 time form or the 100 on the buyer scale are both really big figs, and especially to be earned on derby shooters at this point in the trail. I think this one has every right to step forward. Irad sticks, and we know Irad tends to get Todd's best stuff. So I thought the race kind of goes through Speakeasy the one. I can also make a case for some others in here. So I thought Locked was quite interesting, the other Pletcher. But we've seen horses coming out of that Breeders' Cup Juvenile who just haven't returned to be themselves with both, with somebody like Fierceness. So I think I wanted to go back to the fresh face and the horse that I think we were supposed to see Speakeasy at Saratoga and never did. So I landed on Speakeasy as my top choice, and I think I'm comfortable building around him. But again, this is a fairly interesting race. There's a lot of ways you can go in here.
Yeah, so I guess we'll start off. Does anybody really think that Dornock is going to be favored over Locked in this race?
No way. The board is just wrong. That was a terrible line.
I mean, I don't know what the final odds end up being, but it feels like the wrong horse is favored here, in my opinion. I think it's very likely the Locked is ending up as your post-time favorite over Dornock. To circle back to Mark's pick of Speakeasy, this is a horse, both really this horse and Victory Avenue, who both exited the common maiden race with very impressive figures. And it's difficult for me to really get a handle on what to do, because it kind of points you in a position where you either say, without really any corroborating evidence, that two horses exit a common maiden race that was run fast enough to win the Fountain of Youth already, or something is kind of off with that race. And I'm going to take the latter opinion. Those figures look legitimate. There was two horses that ran back out of that race and actually improved their figures, but they ran back in the same race. So that's really only one more data point. So they seem like they might be legit, but for me, I mean, two horses to debut in the same race, and for a Pletcher horse to go off at 8-1 and win like that and put up that figure, I mean, to just nobody knew. I don't know, but to me, there's some question marks there. And at what are going to be short-ish prices, I'm probably more inclined to take a prove it to me kind of approach with both Speakeasy and Victory Avenue. But if either of them win, especially Speakeasy, if this horse wins by 3 and runs a 97 buyer, I can't say I'll be totally surprised. That being said, I do think the race goes through either Dornock or Locked. I was really impressed with Dornock's last race, but Road Warrior brings up a really good point. Is that December 2nd race in the Remsen had an extremely strong rail, a very strong rail bias that day. And it was also held over a muddy sealed track. So normally that would kind of incentivize me to downgrade or throw out a horse like Dornock. But watching that race, this horse dueled against a very fast pace. The other speeds in that race just absolutely fell apart. I mean, and they were half decent speed horses. They weren't totally cheap speeds, but the horses that finished 2nd, 3rd, and 4th were 10th, 7th, and 9th at the first call. So the speed of that race totally fell apart. Dornock was able to hang on, actually got green in the stretch and brushed the rail, got headed, more than headed, was probably behind Sierra Leone by half a length inside the 16th pole, and then re-rallied on that good rail to actually get up for the win. So there's mixed signals for me in this race. I mean, how much do you attribute to the good rail? How much do you attribute to the muddy track? How much do you give for the best of the speeds in that race? It's a tricky call. At 2-1, I'm more inclined to go towards Locked, who I think is a more consistent horse with perhaps less question marks. But given that I don't think that'll be the case, I can't really make a firm distinction. I'm going to take the cop out here and probably use Dornoch and Locked, and those are the only two horses on my ticket. If I had to pick one, I think Locked is probably a better horse given the race he ran in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where the pace of the race just never materialized and the speed held together up front. I thought he made a nice run to close a little bit and barely missed second. He is more of a grinder, so I don't really know if this is the race I'd want him as much as the Florida Derby with that short stretch. But I do think that him or Dornoch are kind of 1A, 1B to me.
Okay, I gotta ask something, Caleb, because you mentioned it. With Speakeasy, he's gonna be what, third or fourth choice in here? I mean, Locked and Dornoch have to be your first and second, in whatever order they end up being in. What price do you get on somebody like Speakeasy? 7-2?
I would say 7-2, 3-1 ish. I think Locked is honest to God going to be 3-2 is probably my guess.
Yeah, right. Like he's getting a ton of money.
Dornoch goes off 5-2, maybe 2-1. And then I think you maybe get 7-2 on Speakeasy. And I don't think anybody else really takes any money. Victory Avenue is probably the horse that gets totally lost on the board, who actually has a shot to,
Agreed.
to run in this race.
6 or 8-1. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's the horse that gets overlooked. But if you're looking for, I'm not saying that Speakeasy is going to be short, but I'm just saying that as a, to add a third horse who's going to be the third choice, I'd probably just rather wait and see. And from a pick 5 perspective, if I win bet, if you think that horse is a bet at 7-2 or 3-1, then, probably not for me. But I mean, if you like the horse and believe the figure, that's not a bad bet.
Yeah, I would have a hard time getting there on a win bet at 3-1, 7-2 range, but it's a horse that I would be really pissed off if beat me in a pick 5. You're getting a last leg. I think you might get some mid prices earlier on. It's just I think I want coverage here. I guess that's more my take, but no, I respect it. Cool.
I mean, we can open up to Josh because this is something that I know him and I always look at it similarly. One of the knocks I had against Speakeasy and Victory Avenue is I don't think either one of them can get in front of Dornoch. So from a pace perspective, I mean, how does this look to you, Josh?
I mean, this looks like it's going to melt.
That's kind of what I thought as well.
Excuse me. And that's kind of why I ended up on a lone A. When I'm only using one horse, I'm using the 8 Locked. I think that this is if you're going to use one of the short prices, I think this is a single, or in Mark's case, Mark plays tickets different than I think you and I do for the most part, Caleb. But in Mark's case, it's a single A, and maybe you use some B's and C's behind. I don't, unless you have some very, very strong opinions earlier on in the card or in the sequence, using both Locked and then Dornoch and then using the one. I mean, you're going to take the 3 logicals in here, and I agree. I'm not gonna sit here and say Road Warrior, who thinks the one is value at 7-2. I mean, if you think that and you can single this one, I mean, I think he's going to play longer than that horizontally. And if you single it and you can leverage it, I mean that's great. When you get these flat type races up top, if you can really make a strong distinction on one of them, I think that's how you make money in these sequences. And I'm just looking at the Brisnet form here, right? They got Dornoch as an E8. They got Speakeasy and Victory Avenue as E6s. You got the 2 Ladombro as an E5. You got the 6 Merit as an EP6. I mean, you start seeing this stuff. You see 4 horses that have hundreds early pace last time out. I mean, my eyes, I see that, and my eyes immediately are looking, all right, who's coming from off the pace? And, Locked ran a nice race in that BC Juvenile. Unfortunately didn't win. Muth came back out of that and ran really well. So I think the figure there can be kind of backed up a little bit. I think if Locked runs his race, he's going to be tough to beat in this spot. Now, Mark does bring up a good point. How many times have we seen these horses in these BC races, these BC juvenile races, and not just all the 2-year-old BC races, come back their 3-year-old season off the layoff in a stakes race and just not run? I mean, we see it happen all the time, right? And these horses get bet and these horses don't run. So I think it's a little bit tough. I think, to, just project, hey, he's going to run back to that juvenile race, right? But I don't know. I look at this race. You got some unknowns in the 1 and the 3. You got the 5 Dornoch, who's gonna go, and yeah, I just have a hard time, taking one of these front runners, and especially at a short price. And when you have these unproven horses that have only shown that one dimension, it's hard to think that they're going to all of a sudden show a second dimension, especially when they move up to a stakes race like this. But yeah, I mean, it's boring, right? I'm guessing Locked is going to be your morning line favorite. I'm guessing he's going to go off around 2-1. I don't really see him. I don't see him going any shorter than that. I mean, maybe 9-5. I don't know, but I think this is definitely gonna be one of those races where, like, your fourth choice is going to be 5-1, and after that, everyone's going to be double digits. It's going to be, I think, a real tightly packed odds board. But
yeah. So currently on Bovada, they have Locked at plus 190.
Mm-hmm.
So, between 9-5 and 2-1 there, basically. Dornoch is 3-1. Speakeasy is 7-2. So about what we figured. I find, if I'm picking between Dornoch at 3-1 or Speakeasy at 7-2, that's a very easy pick for me to go to Dornoch. But neither one of them are necessarily horses I'm going to rush the window to bet at either of those prices.
Yeah, Kevin says Dornoch is a horse he wants to see to win because he seems exciting and fun, but he wants no business betting him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's always those horses, right? There's like Flightline, right? Flightline was fun to watch run, right? We got to see him at the Breeders' Cup. Huh?
The 3 times that he ran?
6 times, apparently. I know, it was way more than I thought.
Okay. Yeah. That's way higher than I thought, yeah.
But
I want to clarify that you're not making a Flightline and Dornoch comparison, right?
No. But I'm just saying that those types of horses do exist. But yeah, I don't think.
I mean, Dornoch's going to run as many times as Flightline has by this weekend.
That's true. That's
true. Off by 1, I suppose, but yeah. But that Remsen, I mean, I know we talked about Aqueduct form not really transferring, or I guess you and Andrew did, Josh, but that Remsen has come back a little bit, on the live side. I mean, Sierra Leone came back to win the Risen Star, was it? And then we saw Drumroll Please come back to win, I think it was a listed stakes at Aqueduct. So, I mean, that race has been fairly lively. So, I mean, it's a tough race. Races with biases are always tough to sort of figure out how to handle the horses coming out of them. It's easy to bet the horse that was against the bias, but with a horse like Dornoch, who was sort of with the bias, but against the flow of the race, a little bit trickier to figure out.
Yeah. Do you think that people are going to bet Dornoch a little bit heavier because they saw what Sierra Leone did next time out?
I think it'll cause him to get bet more than he would if Sierra Leone didn't run. Yeah, for sure. I don't think it's going to cause him to be the favorite over Locked. No.
Mark, you look like you were going to add something.
No, I just, I keep kind of musing and thinking about who's actually going to be morning line favorite in here. No, I don't really have anything to add. I just, I guess my thing with Dornoch is, the Remsen had come up a little wet, and I kind of wondered if that figure was fluffed a little bit given the going. But given that others have come back to run well, and really that Remsen wasn't that wet. I mean, it was a little off, but it wasn't like it was boggy or anything. I guess maybe I'm overthinking it because he doesn't really have a wet track pedigree. So sometimes you can almost play that like a reverse bias. So a horse didn't run well on and off going, therefore they don't take money, but they just really hated the going. So I was just trying to make that kind of against the bias or against the track conditions kind of thing, but I was overthinking it.
Yeah, one last horse I do want to mention a little bit because I really wanted to make a case for this horse. I was hoping Mark would talk about it, which is the 9 Dancing Groom here, the JJ horse in the spot. And this is, you look at this horse's form and just doesn't look great. Obviously, last time in the Holy Bull ran 5th at a huge price, but I mean that race was 25 and then 50 and 2. I mean, nobody who was not on the lead was going to get there in that race. I mean, that was just a ridiculously run race. And you kind of go through his last couple races. That Kentucky Jockey Club, also kind of on the slow side. And you go back to his maiden win where he finally got a little bit of pace in that second fraction, and or even his Aqueduct race. You start to see a little bit of, I think, ability, a little bit of closing ability. And I think this is the type of horse that, if he gets a just absolutely perfect pace setup in front of him, maybe could be one that kind of clunks up for a price. So probably not on top, but this might be one to use kind of underneath, something to, spice up some exotics, maybe a tournament play if you're playing some pick and praise. JJ gets aboard again. He rode in Churchill for Antonio Sano, but I thought it was a little bit intriguing. The pace figures on the Brisnut side popped out at me. I mean, that 106 late pace and then the 98 late pace in the stakes race really just like they just stick out and when you're looking for a closer. So I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of just like looking for ways to maybe spice up using the 8 locked on top.
I do love me some Javi, but man, you got to squint really, really hard to get to that horse. Whew.
Yeah, I mean, if Mark doesn't even pick the Javi horse, then. But yeah, I mean, you make some good points, Josh. I mean, you do about being against the race flow a couple times with some slow paces. I think I just don't believe this horse is talented. Like, if he had a race anywhere that was in the ballpark, I'd be a little more forgiving, I think. But
exactly,
his maiden was against a bunch of off the turf horses, and then I just wish I would have seen a little bit more.
Yeah,
but you're going to get 20 or 30 or 40 to 1. So I mean,
no, you're going to get every part of 30 to 1 on that horse. And I mean, Sano's also somebody that's. When I think of trainers, he's somebody I think that takes shots in these bigger spots. Like he's somebody who you see a lot of his horses running in graded stakes at 30 and 40 to 1 because he takes these kind of shots. So and you don't run at 30 to 41 in a big spots because you win a lot of them. So
yeah, I guess I'm just thinking back to a couple years back. But it was a Holy Bull that the horse won. There was that horse Harvey Wallbanger that came up the rail that just got that like absolute, just the race completely fell apart in front of him.
Candy Ass Trap.
Yeah. And just won at a huge price. And yeah, I don't know. I think there's always one of those Gulfstream preps that something just absolutely nonsense happens in. And I think this could be it. It just happens to be that, probably the best closer in the race happens to be the favorite. So I think he's going to get the setup.
It doesn't always seem like that's just Derby preps in general, though. Like Derby preps you have, I mean, lightly raced horses. There's a lot of upside. Do you want to inherently spread a little, just trying to find those prices, those kind of things? I mean, that just kind of is par for the course with these types of races, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? There's been all the talk about, with the what was it, the Derby preps with speed kind of being taken out of the Derby, right? Because there's no longer those sprint races, right? And then what happened 2 years ago?
Right? Yeah, they were suicide. Well, last year,
the last 2 years,
or last 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, they've gone suicidal on the front end. It's completely melted. Yeah, no, I think that was sort of an overhyped narrative because obviously they took the 2-year-old sprint races, getting graded stakes earnings out, so things like the Super Derby no longer paid towards it. So I don't know. I mean, I think yeah, the last 2 years have, I think, been odd.
All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Mark, I don't know if you looked at anything else for this weekend.
I haven't really done a lot of looking. I know, with Santa Anita being off Saturday, there's nothing really that I want to play. I'm still trying to take it easy mode until NHC. But I might dabble around. I'll be skiing, so it's a little harder to chase. But oftentimes I'll play. Like I know we capped fairgrounds there, and I tried to fire a pick 5, and I did from the mountain, and didn't use the Josh horse, whiffed on what would have been a nice score in the first leg. So what are you gonna do? But yeah, I might dabble around a little someplace.
Caleb, you going full DJ this weekend?
Not full. We'll call half maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be, like I said, I'm not a Gulfstream player, but I always like the Fountain of Youth card. I feel like it's the best overall card of the Gulfstream meet. So
Pegasus?
I think it's better than Pegasus, truthfully, but not as much star power, but a better set of 14 races, whatever it ends up being. Okay. And then also you have Gotham at Aqueduct, which I like Aqueduct, so I'll probably dabble there. So yeah, I'll be around. Maybe not so much like tomorrow, but Saturday I'll be playing a little bit.
Yeah, and if Aqueduct gets the same weather they're calling for up here, Aqueduct may be a bog.
So I will say I mentioned this briefly on the podcast, but that card gets very interesting if it's very wet, because there are some horses that have not run very well in the slop that I think are going to be short prices, and there are some horses that have run very well in the slop that I think might be some nice prices. So
they're calling for quite a lot of rain. We're supposed to get rain up this far north, so yeah, if that does happen, that may be the really interesting card to play if you're somebody that likes to use your Tomlinsons.
Yeah, it was definitely because when I looked at it, when Andrew and I were talking about it, man, I don't remember off the top of my head what the which race it was, but there was one horse, and I think I mentioned in the podcast, it was just like,
well, I figured Caleb and I did something to piss you off because you made us cap Gulfstream, and then you didn't let both of us who love the duck cap the duck card, but you and Andrew took that one. I figured we did something to piss you off.
No, it just worked out because the Gotham card. I mean, I just think that this is a better card. Top to bottom, right? It's tough, right? I like turf racing. I think everyone likes turf racing. Yeah, like. Man, I'm trying to find. I'm looking through my notes, but I can't find it. But maybe I'll tweet out a video or something. I'll do a short for that. By the way, thank you guys, everyone, before we log off, for checking out our short videos and stuff like that. The short video we put out last week for Saudi Cup, I was able. I'm going to pat myself on the back here a little bit, since I did give out Senor Buscador in the Saudi Cup. Unfortunately, my other pick did not run very well, which was Dermasoda Gake. But Senor Buscador won at a pretty nice price. So shout out to the connections there, and it sounds like they're gonna go to Dubai, I think, next, right, Mark?
That was how the lease was structured. Yeah, they got those 2 races. So, but you've given up on your human rights cause now. You're going to play Saudi Cup?
I mean, I didn't play it. I did not bet it.
You had the big price and you didn't bet it because
I let my morals get in the way.
We call it moral.
That was unfortunate, but it is what it is. The stuff I do for content. But yeah, that's going to do it for us. Obviously, check us out on thewronglead.com at wrong_lead. I am at Cherry Drank. Mark is at 2 Turns. Caleb at Caleb WVU. I have another podcast guest hopefully getting lined up here in the next couple of weeks. We're just trying to get schedules kind of figured out for that. And there's a very solid chance that I will be in Louisville for the Derby. I will not be at the Derby, but I will be in Louisville for the Derby at a Derby party. So there might be some fun stuff, fun content for that coming out. But yeah, just check our stuff out here on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we will catch you guys later.
Let's go! Where's the fucking line? Come on! Yes! Yes!